And welcome to the interview on France 24. We have the pleasure of joining Ambassador Gérard Heureux of France, this month's Security Council President here in New York. Welcome to the programme.
Good afternoon.
Obviously, we have to start with Syria. It's been dominating council talk and council business for a while now. Now, despite the fact that we saw the resignation of Kofi Annan last week, a resolution passed in the UN General Assembly criticising Security Council inaction, you yourself have said that the Security Council is deadlocked. In your month of presidency, do you see a way forward?
Well, as I've said, actually there is a deep division, a deep political division between, on one side, Russia and China, and on the other side, the large majority of the Council. We have faced 3 vetoes in 1 year, which is quite extraordinary. And I don't think that we have seen 3 vetoes in a row on the same issue since the Cold War. So I guess that in political terms, I don't see how we could move forward in the Security Council on the Syrian issue. So for us, it's quite a challenge because, of course, the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Laurent Fabius, would want to use our presidency to try, to break through, or at least to try to move towards a solution in the Syrian crisis. So on the political front, as I've said, it's quite difficult. So maybe on the humanitarian front, maybe we could convince Russia and China to join us.
What would that mean exactly?
You know, right now there is no humanitarian access in Syria, which means that all the humanitarian aid has to be channeled through the Syrian Red Crescent, which is quite decent, but which is totally overwhelmed by the challenge. 3 million of Syrians actually are lacking food, medicine, children's food. So it's really, we could demand the Syrian government, of course, but also the opposition, really to give access to the humanitarian aid, especially in Aleppo. In Aleppo, we could think of a ceasefire, for instance, really maybe allowing the children, the old people, the women to leave the city because they are trapped there. So again, we are in contact with all the members of the Security Council, and we see what is possible.
I mean, this access to humanitarian aid could mean anything from helping agencies on the ground to humanitarian corridors, which are you seeing this as a way in which to gain access of the international community to more people, or would it be more limited in scope?
Well, humanitarian corridors means military force, so it's totally unacceptable by the Russians and the Chinese.
But you yourself wouldn't mind that? I mean,
really, we wouldn't mind. But the problem is, again, we are blocked, and we are not going to act without actually the endorsement of the Security Council, which gives the legality to a military operation. So no, we are trying to get from the Syrian government first, and after that from the opposition, to give access to humanitarian aid.
You say the Security Council is blocked, and obviously you brought up the 3 vetoes from Moscow and Beijing. But Kofi Annan, in his resignation press conference, very bitter, finger-pointing, talking about the Security Council being divided, talking about people going outside the Council. In a way, France and the Western powers have been doing this as well, saying they support Kofi Annan's plan, but at the same time supporting this big Friends of Syria group, many of which are openly arming the Syrian opposition. Money is flowing towards the Syrian opposition as well as training. Is this a bit of a problem for you? Can you reconcile the fact?
What Kofi Annan told us was, at some point, he said, we need a political transition, but I can't deliver this political transition without an agreement of the Security Council. And the problem is that the Security Council has been so divided that we were not able to support what Mr. Kofi Annan was doing. Kofi Annan was asking us to give him means of pressure on the regime, but also on the opposition. And our resolution was actually trying to give him the teeth that he was needing. So in a sense, I would consider that it's China and Russia which didn't support what Mr. Kofi Annan was doing.
So you were pressuring the opposition by supporting them or giving them money? Or?
As for the money, I don't see if we are giving any money to the opposition. And also, you were referring to the weapons flowing to the opposition. But frankly, if the weapons have been flowing to the opposition, it's surprising that the opposition has had for the 18 months only light weapons. So we have not been very effective. No, I think that is a sort of idée reçue, that, common wisdom that weapons have been flowing into Syria. First, in this part of the world, weapons are circulating. Really, there is a border from Iraq. Light weapons are everywhere. So I guess they have light weapons. They may received light weapons from Iraq, maybe. But as for the heavy weapons, they have not received it. And the fighting is still very unequal. And actually, you should refer more to the weapons which have been sent by Moscow, by the Russians, to Syria. That's the problem, because they have used the helicopters, the planes against the civilian neighborhoods.
More and more council members are going outside the council when it comes to their interests in Syria. We have Hillary Clinton travelling to Turkey. What is France doing on the diplomatic front in terms of trying to contain and get this crisis in some sort of solvable manner?
We are trying to work with the Turks and with other countries to unify the position, really. And Mr. Laurent Fabius, the French minister, will go also to the region at the mid of August.
How difficult has it been for you, for Ambassador, in these past few months? Because the atmosphere inside the council consultations have been pretty nasty, and sometimes in front of the camera too. Have you ever seen a Security Council so divided and also ideologically divided?
No, it's quite nasty, actually. I give you an incredible anecdote. Really, the Russian ambassador has accused the French government actually to have appointed somebody who was working with Annan to another job to undermine Annan.
The former head of peacekeeping, Jean-Marie Guéhenno.
Exactly, and he did it in front of the camera. It's quite outrageous. No, as I've told you, 3 vetoes. It's really a political crisis. Really, there are 2 sides in the council: Russia, China, and the majority. Of course, we would want to bridge, really, and to bridge between them. But for the moment, I'm quite doubtful that we will be able to do it.
Is this showing the impotence of the UN?
The UN, always I said, the United Nations, there are these United Nations deciding to work together. So there are some issues where simply we are unable to work together.
But considering the consensus over Côte d'Ivoire, we saw in Libya, and then suddenly it's come to an end.
Oh no, because for instance, on the Palestinian issue, the Council, the UN is totally unable to act. Really, even when we try to condemn the Israeli settlement policy, we try to condemn it by using the words of President Obama, and the US vetoed our resolution. So, really, so there are some issues which are very sensitive where we don't reach a consensus, and it's not new.
Let's talk about a couple of other issues that there is a potential for consensus. Mali, obviously, very worrying, especially of what's happening in the north of the country. The African Union had been in discussions with you. There is one resolution passed, but as yet no authorization for a multinational force to go in. Is that going to come soon? Because things are not getting better in Mali.
No, I think we are, in a sense, we are available. The Security Council, through the resolution 2056, has said that we are available to consider a request by the Africans, to send a force in Mali. But first, we need to have the Mali authorization. The Mali authorities have to request the force. Secondly, we need to have also the request from the Africans themselves. So far, we have not received either of them, but we are expecting and will consider positively this request.
Do you think, in a way, everyone's moving a little too slowly for what's going on the ground?
Actually, I think it will be a long crisis because first you go to Bamako. After that, for the reconquest of the north, you have negotiation, but also military intervention. But you have to rebuild the army of Mali, and it will take a lot of time. No, unfortunately, I think that we have to consider this crisis in terms of a long crisis.
And obviously a crisis that's been going on for a long time is DRC and the eastern DRC. 4 years ago, Goma nearly fell. There was an intervention by the UN force on the ground. It looks like we could see that again with the M23 rebels. Do you think it will come to that?
It's a hopeless situation, and in DRC and especially in Eastern DRC, we are going to a tragedy, from a tragedy to a tragedy. And it's only the civilians who are suffering, the women who are raped and the people who are killed or displaced. And in this chaos, I think the UN force is doing its best. For the moment, we are decided, the UN, we are decided to block the road towards Goma. And actually we have our forces there. Our attack helicopters have shot repeatedly at the rebels of the M23. But again, our means are limited, and it's not a fighting force. It's a peacekeeping force, which is quite different. So we do hope that Rwanda and DRC reach an agreement.
The Security Council here is divided, despite the UN report, which criticised Rwanda and suggested that they were heavily funding the M23. Why aren't we seeing more action, considering?
I think it's the problem, I guess. First, there are some members of the Council which are quite close to Rwanda, and they are moving, but they are still hesitating, really, I guess, to accuse Rwanda of what is happening. I guess they are hoping, and I think all of us, we share this hope, to convince the two countries to, in a sense, to go back to the compromise they had concluded in 2009, really, and which has been broken 2 or 3 months ago. That's the only way forward.
Well, no consensus really on Rwanda, no consensus on Syria. You have your work cut out this month. Good luck. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us. You've been watching the interview on France 24. Stay tuned. The news is next.